Hi, and welcome to this week's Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons Teaching. It's great to be back with you all. So this week we are talking all about emotions and specifically negative emotions, those uncomfortable and painful feelings that we all experience from time to time. So we'll be asking, can these negative emotions ever be helpful? How do we manage them? So we want you to be able to use all your emotions positively as a force for good in your life. Okay, David, so emotions, do they actually serve a useful purpose for us?
Well, I think they're vital. All human beings, what makes us unique are our emotions. And this is why it's a great opportunity to talk about a core teaching of Wu Wei Wisdom. You are the creator of your emotions. You are not the victim. Now, listen to that teaching. I'm not saying you shouldn't create emotions. I'm not saying emotions are wrong. But what we hope to really understand today in this life lesson is take accountability for your emotions. Understand the beliefs and the thoughts that create your emotions as you respond to challenges and situations and people that you meet in your life in reality. Just check your belief structure on the emotions that you're creating.
But David, if negative emotions are painful and uncomfortable, should we actually have them? I mean, is the purpose to just try and get rid of them and experience as few of them as possible? What are we actually aiming for?
Well, in this teaching, I'm trying to show you that red light emotions, whether you call them anxiety, stress, frustration, overwhelm, intense emotions, and I understand that a lot of people watching this will reject this teaching because they will say, you don't understand how intense and powerful my emotions are. And that's why that original teaching is so important. I am not denying your emotions, but what I am saying is you have created them. No one else can put an emotion in your body. No one can transfer emotions through the air so they enter your skin and bones and go into your chest or your tummy. That every emotional feeling that you're experiencing, you have created as a response. And here's the teaching. That emotional response may be appropriate. And then there's nothing wrong with emotions, but it may not be appropriate. And so that's why we have to do the golden thread. If you're constantly getting emotions of fear, anxiety, stress, tension, overwhelm, intense emotions, I would say that they're showing you that there is something in your belief system that really needs your attention. In the Taoist teaching, that's called a Shen disturbance. It means you're separating from your worth and value. And what the golden thread does, it takes you back, reverse engineers you back to where you're making that breakaway from your Shen.
So what I'm hearing you saying here, David, is if we do experience a negative feeling or emotion, an uncomfortable, painful feeling, that it could be for one of two reasons. It could be entirely appropriate, so almost like a real kind of alarm bell warning that something in the external world, something with a person or a situation, is something we need to be very careful with, cautious about, not so hasty. We need to look at what the imbalance is in that external situation or with the dynamic with that person. So that emotion is positive, although it feels uncomfortable because it's warning us. It's saying, hold on a minute, just have a look at what's going on here. The other thing I think you're saying is that the negative emotion and feeling could also be a warning sign that there is an imbalance internally with our thoughts and our beliefs, something that needs to be looked at. And particularly if these negative emotions are prolonged, severe, and going on and on and on for a period of time, even when, say, circumstances around us are changing, we still are holding on to some negative emotions inside of us. That's when we have to look within. And the golden thread process, this process of self-inquiry, therapeutic self-inquiry that you teach and you work with all your clients, that helps you to discern the difference between those two sides of the coin as to what is the purpose, what is the reason for these negative emotions and feelings.
Thank you, Alex, for that summary. And I guess the way you've summarized it with these two things, they both involve going back and making sure that the belief that creates the emotion is the same thing. The one big difference that you've identified, you may have an immediate red light feeling about a situation, a purpose, but it doesn't prolong. It doesn't go on for days, weeks, years, and for some of my clients, a lifetime. That if it's going on and you're constantly in a state of fear, you're constantly in a state of overwhelm, constantly in a state of anxiety, this is not the external world. This is an internal problem in your belief system. So on the two examples that you give, the golden thread can be equally as important. But if it's an immediate reaction, it goes away. Maybe a few hours, maybe a day, it goes away, it doesn't prolong. And that's what we call the carousel of despair. When you're constantly creating those red light feelings, it's kind of telling you there's something fundamentally wrong in your belief system, the way you view the world, your worldview, the way you see yourself and the external world around you. And that's where the real spiritual work has to be done, down in your belief system. And as I try and say on every video, what do you believe? Why do you believe it? And that then would bring us back to the part of the subconscious mind that I prefer to call the inner child, because most of these 40 limiting beliefs were formed in childhood between the ages of 6 years old and 9 years old. Seems very relevant, not exact, but very relevant. And if those beliefs are set in our mind, we view the world and our interaction with the world through that set of beliefs.
And so, David, am I right in thinking that it's natural and authentic to occasionally have that negative emotion and feeling? That's part of the pattern of our emotional experiences and living in the real world and encountering challenges and unpredictable situations and unexpected situations. But if we are living in red light emotions all the time, that is not natural. It's not authentic, and that is absolutely a time when we need to look at our patterns of thinking and our core beliefs.
Yes, and that's why that original teaching I gave you, you are the creator of your emotions, you are not the victim. So some of my clients will come on and say, oh, well, you're saying I should be like a robot and never have feelings. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, please create feelings. Please create feelings, but be responsible for the feelings. And then what a lot of clients do, they'll try and avoid the feeling, or they'll protect themselves from the feeling, or they believe that there's such a thing called emotional safety. They want to be safe. But how can you protect yourself or avoid a feeling that you're creating? So that being accountable for the creation of your emotion is really the breakthrough. And many clients who watch our videos, who book a session with me, I normally start with that. Are we agreed that you create your emotions? And the answer I sometimes get, not always now, is maturely, intelligently, I believe that. But, now there's the but. And remember, when you say the word but in the middle of a sentence, it means forget what I've just said. It means that part of your subconscious mind, that I'm calling the inner child, doesn't accept and take responsibility for creating the emotions. And that's what creates that internal turmoil inside of you, which actually increases the intensity of the emotion.
And so I guess what you're saying, David, is that the very first step to doing the golden thread process is accepting and owning that we create all our emotions. So, and they are in response to external situations, but also principally in response to our thoughts and our beliefs, which are the filter systems through which we process these external situations and events that are going on in our life. So that's the very first thing. And really, would you say that you can't proceed any further along this golden thread process of self-inquiry until you fully accept that the emotions are yours and they're being created within you, rather than say basically blaming other people, saying they triggered me, this situation triggered me. The situation may be bad, but your response is your response.
It's an extremely powerful teaching. I would go so far as to say, Alex, it's a life-changing teaching, because when you're doing the golden thread, if you don't accept, instead of saying, well, I've created this red light, why have I created this red light? And then you'll say, because I feel. You give me another feeling. And remember, when you're doing the golden thread that we've demonstrated on many videos, and we talk about a lot in the community, do not use the F word. Do not say, I feel. Say, I think, I choose, I believe, because that gives you accountability. And even when you're listening to this, and if you do this, you'll immediately get a resistance, because the inner child part of your mind doesn't want to be accountable. They want to blame everybody else, including you. This is the key. This is when we get into the intricacies of self-sabotage, of blaming yourself, of thinking you don't deserve it, you're unlovable, you're not good enough, you can't cope. This is the inner child. Now, this is where it gets really a little bit crazy, and we need to clarify it. The inner child will blame you. So the inner child is always looking to move the blame. It's him, it's them, it's my parents, it's my childhood, it's my teacher, it's my brother, it's my sister, it's that. They're always looking outside instead of being accountable and responsible. Because, as you said, that's the key. Because you can't change. This, again, is such an important teaching. Please listen to this. You cannot change what you do not accept. You cannot change what you don't accept, because it's not yours. How can you change something that's not yours? If you believe it's everybody else, you can't change it because it's everybody else. And so therefore you become in victim mode. And there's the problem. The inner child in you will see yourself in victim mode, and then your statements will represent that victim mode. Poor me, I can't cope, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it, I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy. These are all victim statements spoken from an amazing, awesome, spiritual human being. I can never understand why someone would say that about themselves. Why would you? It's like you're beating yourself down all of the time. And many people say, well, I don't say it often. You're saying it all of the time in your self-talk. Listen to the self-talk. Remember, the self-talk is a conversation with the universe. How many times do you denigrate yourself? How many times is that? There you go again. It's always me. It never works for me. That proves my point. Blah, 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 blah. Poor me, poor me. And then what that does, it just increases. It's like throwing petrol on top of a fire. The red light feelings increase, and then you become the victim of your own red lights.
Yeah, I mean, that's so powerful, David. So I think this ownership is the vital first step. Yeah. Owning the emotions. Yeah. They belong to me, they're created by me. What can I do about it now?
Yes,
and that's actually very empowering.
So I say, and it really throws a lot of my clients off, I say to them, please carry on. Please carry on creating anxiety. Please carry on. I'm not here to stop you. And they say, but I don't want to. Then why are you doing it? That's the key. You see, they see themselves, or they say, tell me how to stop. This is a number one thing. Tell me how to stop creating it. And I says, you can't tell you how to stop creating it until you be accountable for why you're creating it. That's the key. Because if you don't own it, if you're not accountable, if you don't accept it, you can't change it. It's not yours to change. It's somebody else's. It's something else's. And this is a fundamental teaching. So the three fundamental teachings of Wu Wei Wisdom, for those who haven't heard them clearly and new subscribers, Number one, the one we're talking about today, you are the creator of your emotions. You are not the victim. I am not saying you shouldn't create emotions. Please create as many emotions as you want to, but you create them. Number two, you have inherent, innate value and worth. No one can give it to you. No one can take it away from you. My word for that, being a Taoist, is Shen, S-H-E-N. You have Shen. You have it. Everyone has it. No one can give it to you. No one can take it away from you. That's your gift. That's your birthright. And number three, you are accountable. I'm sorry. You cannot avoid being accountable.
Yeah.
And you follow that path by truth, honesty, and integrity. And you've spent your life trying not to be. This is going to be a funny sentence. Try and listen to this sentence. You are accountable for spending your life trying to avoid being accountable.
Mm.
You can't get out of it. You just can't avoid it. And that's what makes you a spiritual being. That's what makes you so wonderful. You are accountable. So take that accountability and find out if this is you that we're talking to about red lights. If you're living, and some of my clients are living in intense red light feelings, take a moment, do the work. Don't call them a name like anxiety, depression. Call them a red light feeling. And then ask yourself, and this is what a lot of clients have very difficulty in doing, they go, why have I chosen to create this red light feeling? And then as you go down the golden thread, don't use feel. I think, I choose, I believe.
I want to say two things there. The first thing is that this accountability, I think it's really important to say that, yes, we are accountable for our emotions and feelings. They are within our gift to create, to manage, to deal with. What we're not accountable for is other people and how other people act, appropriate or very inappropriately. We're also not accountable for situations in the past, particularly when we were younger, if we were mistreated or abused or suffered some sort of trauma in some way that was beyond our control. We're not accountable for those, but we are accountable now for how we choose to think and believe and the emotions that we produce in response to those thoughts and beliefs about those past situations or about these current situations. So it's very important to understand, like, what is our actual sphere of influence? What can we control here and what can't we control here? What can we be accountable and responsible for? And what we need to just let go, because we can't do anything about it. We can't do anything about the past. We can't do anything about how other people behave and act. But what we can do, what we can be totally empowered to do, is to own and manage our own emotional state and our own internal world and our own sense of well-being.
Such a vital observation you've made there, Alex, and it's one that comes up when we're doing the work. There's a couple of things I want to say there. When you were a child, you hadn't got the information that we can pass on to you now. So, as you said in your observation, if you were being abused or in a dysfunctional family, you didn't have the knowledge, the equipment, the techniques to deal with it. And that's why I always believe and I always say in these teachings, your inner child is truly amazing. They are victorious. I don't know how they got through your situation, but they did. So as you quite rightly said, you are not accountable for other people. Now, we're not blaming the inner child at all. In fact, we're educating the inner child. We are reparenting the inner child to change their perception of what happened to them and how they can deal with it better. that they don't have to hold on to this like that kernel in the middle of a nut. It's not helping. It won't change anything. We haven't got a time machine. We can't go back and change anything. The only thing we can change that is in your control to change is your perception, what you believe. And that's why we do these videos. The second thing you said was very important and very vital. So many of my clients do count themselves responsible for their parents' behavior. They say things like, if I was a better child, if I'd have done things better, if I'd have acted better, if I'd have worked harder, if I'd have done this, then my parents wouldn't be the way that they were, and it's down to me. So here's one of the complexes that we have to deal with a child. They are not being accountable and learning how to deal with their emotions. And that's what we're here for, to teach them, to listen to them, to give them more information. We're not trying to change their mind. We're trying to widen their perception. But they certainly are not responsible for their adults. They are not responsible for their mother and father and the way that they acted. You are not responsible for your parents' poor parenting technique. So the observation that you made is very important, and it gets very confused. And that's really the reason why we do these teachings, to try and clear that confusion.
And just to extend that particular teaching, David, we're not responsible for our parents and our carers when we were younger, but sometimes, often, we do blame ourselves.
Yes.
And we carry that pattern of blame into adulthood. So if as an adult, our partner or our good friends or our boss or other important figures in our life act inappropriately, we can also blame ourselves. And that self-blame, that pattern of self-blame, not questioning it, not thinking, well, hold on a minute, this is about them, this is not about me, this is about their imbalances. But that self-blame, of course, creates red light emotional feelings if we don't question it.
That's
and
right.
So this goes back to the kind of second important point, which is, if we take responsibility for our emotions and our feelings, they belong to me, they're created by me. The first step on this golden thread process is acknowledging the feeling, as you've said, and then questioning it, which typically, correct me if I'm wrong, David, is, why am I creating this red light feeling now? What is it that I am thinking in this moment, or in the moment when I started to feel that uncomfortable feeling? What was I thinking in that moment?
Yes.
And the golden thread process is about this kind of slowing everything down, pausing and questioning, and starting to pick out, what was my thinking then? Because behind that thought, maybe a few steps down with a little bit more interrogation, you get to the core belief, the misunderstanding within the belief system.
That's right. And then that you're down at the level of the subconscious mind that I'm calling the inner child. And that's your inner child who's 6, 7, 8, needs your help. He or she has never been taught how to deal with her own emotions. And here's the wonderful thing. They've already come through the situation. They are victorious, but they haven't changed their mindset. And this is why this teaching and the way of teaching can be so extremely powerful and life-changing, because that situation happened 10, 15, 20, for some of my clients, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Yet they still have got that mindset as though they're still that child, dealing with the world through that childlike mirror of view. And what we're trying to do is to open up their perception. And one of the best conversations that I have with my clients, just yesterday, I had a lovely conversation. For the first time, it was her second session, and I could talk to her inner child and she could talk, and we had a wonderful conversation. And what you're doing, I often, as I say, I've said on many videos, it's like we're going down the cellar steps and we see a beautiful child in a corner, huddled up and scared, and we go and sit with her and just talk to her. And we listen to what her issues are, and it will normally be around, it's not fair, it's it's untrue, I don't want to do it, I shouldn't do it, they're not doing, and we've got to resolve those issues. Else you can't move on. If you don't bring those issues to a conclusion, they stay with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I think, David, that it's important to say, I mean, obviously, every red light emotion, this will apply to. So whether it's anxiety, whether it's feeling rejected, whether it's anger, whether it's hopelessness, whether it's fear. I mean, if you go through our teaching back catalogue, there will be a teaching there for you for the particular red light emotion that you're experiencing as the starting point. So we've done detailed teachings on understanding how to travel from the emotion down through the thoughts, down to the core beliefs, and how to do the inner child work. And I will put links in the show notes to some of those teachings for you, including our inner child teaching playlist, which is vital as part of this process. But I think the important thing to say is that if you do identify that the red light emotion is coming from an internal imbalance in your thinking, so it's not healthy, it's not appropriate because it's been going on too long, it's severe, it's disproportionate. So if you do, through the golden thread process, identify that misalignment, when you find the belief in your subconscious mind, which is possible, we know through the work you do with all your clients, David, when you correct the belief, when you teach your inner child the truth. So if the belief is, I'm just not lovable. When you teach your inner child the truth that you are lovable. So if your inner child believes it can't cope, and that's at the core reason for the red light emotion, and you teach your inner child that you can cope, you have always coped, you will cope. When you correct those misaligned beliefs, then the result is the red light emotions go away. They may go away immediately, or they just will soften and disappear. And that's when you know you've done the work. That's when you know you've made the change internally.
It's normally the second case that you said, Alex, softening and going away. Because for a lot of my clients, you're changing 20, 30, 40 years of belief system. So, we don't expect you to get it right immediately. But what I'm saying is, when you're doing this work, is to be honest, have integrity. Don't say, well, yes, I'd like to do it, but, I really want to do it, but, how do I, but, and all like that. It's just to be honest. And that's one of the things I say to my clients, and when I'm working with them, I prefer you to say, I hear what you're saying, it sounds really good, but I'm not ready to accept it yet. What a wonderful answer. Then we can say, so why aren't you ready to accept it yet? See, that's a much better way. And then the inner child has to tell us why they're not ready to accept it. And that could be because it's familiar, it believes it's keeping them safe, it's keeping them protected, and then we can go and we can sort out those issues. And that really is what you've got to do. It's almost like pulling the pieces of the scaffolding away, and slowly the inner child will start to think. Again, I'm going to go, rather than having a very narrow view of the world and themselves, what we're doing is widening their view so they see reality in themselves in a spiritual way. Because as you said, the three lies, I'm not good enough, I can't cope, I'm unlovable. Remember what lies behind that, below that, is the vow. There's something wrong with me. There's something missing in me. And that's where you separate from shame, because you are awesome. You are amazing. There can be nothing missing or wrong with you. You are a child of the universe, and this is your unique journey. There is no one in the universe like you. And it's time now to take accountability and responsibility for your journey. Let's sort out these emotions. Let's get them behind you. And now let's start walking fresh snow. The Taoists call it walk fresh snow, walk a new path, walk your authentic, absolutely unique path. That's the key.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. And as I say, I will put links in the show notes to many more teachings to help you with this topic. I really hope you have benefited from this session. Please do let us know and maybe share it with someone else who you think the teaching may also help. David works every week with clients all over the world by Zoom video call on the golden thread process and helping clients understand and manage their emotions. If you'd like to learn more about David's one-to-one sessions, please also check out the link in the show notes as well. And finally, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We produce new teachings every week and twice weekly short snippets of wisdom in our YouTube shorts. So don't forget to subscribe. We look forward to sharing with you again very soon. Bye-bye.